All right, aloha mai kako. Welcome everyone to the first TGIF session for the fall 2022 semester. And this one is, I'm going to share my screen. So this session is called Fast and Furious, Contract Renewal and Tenure Promotion Tips in the 11th Hour. And so just wanted to welcome you all here today. Also want to thank our TGIF session planners. Oh, I have a typo, but our TGIF session planners, Faustino Dagdag, or we call him Dag, Alyssa McDonald, who is a session planner, but also a presenter today, Donald Ching, who is our TGIF committee chair, and then I'm Erin Thompson, who put together the session. The way we're going to run the session today is we're going to actually have two separate breakout rooms, one for tenure and promotion and one for contract renewals. And so breakout room 1 will be for the tenure and promotion, breakout room 2 for contract renewals, and we'll be recording both of those sessions for people to refer to. So in our breakout room 1, we have the following presenters. So we have Alyssa McDonald. She's our associate professor in math and sciences, in biology and zoology. And she's also our most recent recipient of the Board of Regents Excellence in Teaching Award. So thank you so much, Alyssa, for being here today. And I had each of the presenters come up with a quote or something that when they think about dossiers and creating dossiers, what comes to mind when they think about this process? And her quote to you is, "It always seems impossible until it is done." So very inspirational quote. Thanks, Alyssa. We also have Kelsey Aguilera, an associate professor in social sciences, specifically in anthropology. And of course, Kelsey's always so positive. So her quote to you is, "You got this." So thank you, Kelsey. We also have Michelle Igarashi. She is an associate professor, a language arts professor, but she also currently serves as a student services program officer. So she gives good insight in terms of how to write dossiers when you have two different separate primary duties that you have to speak to. And her quote for you is, "Planning. Much work remains to be done before we can announce our total failure to make any progress." So, so that's typical of Michelle. Always got to be funny. So that's Michelle. Okay, breakout room number 2, we have our contract renewals, and we have our team of presenters with Kumu Kalei Laimana, and he is our assistant professor in arts and humanities, specifically in Hawaiian studies. And his quote to you today is, "I've never lost a fight. I either win or I learn." Next, we have Allan Nebrija, assistant professor from academic services. And Allan works in our disability services office. And his quote for us is, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gifts." So that's a very uplifting quote. Thank you, Allan. Luca Preziati, look at that smile. He's our assistant professor in math and sciences and chemistry. And his quote is, "A committee is a group that keeps minutes and loses hours." He's another funny guy like Michelle. So that was his quote for you folks today. And last but definitely not least, we have Kalei Ruiz, who is an assistant professor in our counseling and guidance. And I just love his quote. So his quote to all of you is from RuPaul, "Sashay Shante, people. So you got this. Let's go, girl. You'll be able to do great." Okay, so those are our presenters for today. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you go into your breakout rooms. So again, if you're interested in tenure and promotion, you're going to go into breakout room 1. If you're interested in contract renewals, you can go into breakout room 2. We will be recording both, so you'll be able to hear from all the presenters on your own time as well. And from this point, you're just going to be in the session from now until 1 o'clock. If you folks finish earlier, you're welcome to join the other breakout room and just to see what's going on there, or you can just leave the session after that. Okay, are there any questions before we go ahead and break out to our rooms? Okay, so in breakout room 1, Alyssa's going to be your moderator as well as presenter. In breakout room 2, I'll be doing that for our contract renewals. Donald will stay in this main room for now, just in case we have any latecomers. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open the rooms. So go ahead and join whichever room you are most interested in. Okay, and we'll see you folks. Good luck. Have a great session. Ahui ho.
I already just didn't know you could have people choose which breakout rooms that they could join. I always thought I was in complete control and could make people go where I wanted them to.
We have no control over people when it comes to our colleagues. But thank you so much, Lorraine. Looks like you might have a very personalized session. But again, this will be recorded for those who weren't able to be here with us. So I think what we're going to do, since we have about 50 minutes or so, each of the presenters will present for about 7 or 8 minutes. And what I'll do, presenters, is I'll be kind of keeping track of time. And then I'll just send you a direct chat message and stuff, just to kind of let you know, okay, you got about a minute left just to wrap up. And then afterward, we can open it up if you have any questions for the gang. Okay, does that sound okay? All right, so I guess first of all, I guess I'll go ahead and I'll start with alphabetically. I'm gonna go with you, Allan, if you can go ahead and get started first.
Sure. Thanks, Erin. And thank you everyone for coming, Lorraine. So, I didn't have any like PowerPoints or slides planned today, but really what was helpful for me when I attended these TGIF sessions in the past was really just kind of getting an overview of what everyone did, for their contract renewal and eventually their tenure and promotion. So hopefully I can take some of that and also what I learned from my own DPC experience and pass it on to you, Lorraine. Just question, is this your first contract renewal or are you going for second?
This will be my second one. I did one in May, but it was ill-timed, so I get to do another one again.
Oh, awesome. Okay. All right. Yeah, so I guess the big difference now is we have the electronic submission, right? I was fortunate enough to do both. My first contract renewal was hard copy paper, so I had to do all the the index dividers and made sure I was clear in referencing my evidence. I think the advantage that we all have now who are going through this currently and in the future is the electronic submission process just has everything laid out for you when you go in and the system creates your folder. A lot of our colleagues, they love to get creative and create their own subfolders within folders and links within links, but really they have a pretty good setup. And what it is has everything in order, your introduction, your philosophy, your primary duties, and then it breaks down to community service, college service, and all your professional development. So I think if if you just follow that format, when you're uploading your documents, you should be in good shape. It's very easy for your committee to kind of find where everything is, and that's really what even when we did everything on paper, that was the one thing that I was always told was to be mindful of your readers, right? Not just in how you say things or word things and being succinct, but also in how you organize your documents and your evidence, right? You really want to make it easy for them to find. That they're reading several of these dossiers, not just yours. So definitely want to make it so that they're not searching for the information. And I think that's why the electronic submission, for me anyway, I feel is so much just so much more efficient and easier, because you can say something in your I participated in the Discovery Fair, and then Discovery Fair itself could be a link to your support letter, right, or a link to the flyer. And then for your committee, as they're reading it, rather than later on after they read your narrative say, okay, where's the evidence that Lorraine participated in the Discovery Fair, they just click on the link and then it takes them straight to the evidence, right? So I think that is very helpful. If you submitted before and you got some recommendations from your committee, it's very important to address those, even if the addressing is like, I wasn't able to find this information, or I wasn't able to, maybe they were looking for certain types of data or something else from you, and maybe you just are not able to produce it right now. Even just saying that I understand how important this is, just wasn't able to find it at this time, but I'll make sure, in the future to include this for your reference, things like that. So it's just very important you address all the recommendations. I don't know if everyone does this for their contract renewal, but from my very first one all the way to my second and leading to my tenure and promotion dossier was I had already inserted my teaching philosophy. I know I don't think that's really required for contract renewal, but if you can put that in there and start getting feedback from your committee by the time you're ready to submit for tenure and promotion, you've gotten enough feedback and you kind of know how to, word that, or if you need to polish it or wordsmith it, yes, that was very helpful for me. And also realize, the DPC is there to help you, right? So any recommendations they have, it's really to get you to improve your dossier so that you do get your contract renewal and eventually make it to the tenure and promotion process. Any questions so far?
What does DPC stand for?
Division Personnel Committee.
Okay.
Did I get that right?
That was. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So every division puts together a DPC, and if you're just doing contract renewal, that is the group that's going to review, and then it goes on to, I believe, I think vice chancellor or your division chair, and then eventually Carlos, right? With tenure and promotion, there's another layer added. So you go through your DPC, and then from there it gets passed on to the TPRC, which involves additional members outside of the Leeward institution. Yeah, so that can make it kind of tricky also. But yeah, for me, I've always found, when you're new, you get caught up in how long does it have to be, or is it too long? There are guidelines that tell you what it should be. And really, if you look at the guidelines, I mean, I don't know what they say now, I haven't looked at it for a while, but it says like 8 to 10 pages or something like that. And, everyone I've talked to are like, throw that out the window, right? You're not going to get in trouble for going beyond the 10 pages. I think what's really important, if you have to write 50 pages, as long as that 50 pages is meaningful and it has purpose and you're communicating, your endeavors to the team, right? As opposed to 50 pages of where maybe you've repeated the same idea 3 or 4 times just to kind of create length, right? So as long as there's purpose, I don't think anyone's gonna ding you for being too long. As long as you're articulating why you're writing this down, and the main thing really, if you want to just simplify it, is why did you do what you do? Why did you do what you did? Why did you participate in this particular activity? And what is the impact that it had on the students that you serve and on you as well in terms of your professional development and your growth? Get plenty more time, Erin.
About 2 more minutes, but up to you, Allan.
Yeah, I think that's kind of all I have. Yeah, but hopefully that was helpful for you, Lorraine. Yeah.
And we won't ding you if you go over. So
yeah. I like what Allan was saying. I think another thing that I'll just interject is to talk to your division and get a feel for like the pages, every division has a different culture and slightly different expectations. So talking to your division and seeing those samples will help. Okay, next on, I think I'm gonna throw it over to Luca because you're next on my screen, Luca. So go ahead.
Okay, can I share my screen? Is that okay? All right, I'll click the thing and see if it works. Let me find it first. There. All right. Should be sharing. Can you guys see my dossier?
Yes. Wow.
All
that's
right,
very
that's
nice.
the one. Yeah, I go for nice because my thinking is if it looks nice to start with, you can get away with a lot. If it looks organized and it's really nice, even if you mess up a little bit later, it still counts, I think. I get grumpy when my students turn in a lab report and, maybe the information is there, but it's all messy and the page is sideways, the graph is yay big, all of that. Technically it shouldn't be a problem, but it already puts you in a bad mood. So I try to make it look nice. I'm going to go through a few things that I think apply for both contract renewal and tenure dossier. I use Google Docs, and it turned out to be really helpful. I also did a paper one. My first contract renewal was paper. That was painful because I had to print everything, put the number of a page there, connect it to the appendix. It was lots of work. But with Google Docs, everything is really nice because you have 3 links that you can use, and I would really use them extensively. One is inside your document, as in this appendix. That introduction is automatically built, and I can click on introduction and it will take me in my document where the introduction is, and the same for anything else. So if I want to look at the student learning outcomes, and what's super nice, you click once, it tells you where it leads you, and then you click again, it will take you there, which I think is very nice for the reader. I am also, like Allan said, I'm very reader centric. So whoever reads this, if it is the DPC or the TPRC, I will tailor my document to make it as easy as possible for them to do their job. And I know that they will go through a checklist of things that need to be in my dossier. So I put those first. If you go down beside the personal background and that, all of that, I read what are the requirements for my C3 rank. I wrote them down and I told them, okay, you'll have to demonstrate that I, quote, effectively maintain a professional level of yada, yada. And this is where you can find that information. If you want, feel free to copy and paste, and your job as a DPC member is done. So I already did your job for you because it's easier for me. I already know where my professional development stuff is. For you, DPC member, you have to go and dig it out of 73 pages. So it's much easier for me to put together this little table. It's just, what is it, 7, 8 checkpoints. And I did it for them. And I think they appreciated it. I don't know. So that's the first link within the document, and make it super easy for them to find what they need. So they can just, again, click there and it will take there. The second type of link is outside on the internet. So when I started introducing myself, and this part is not for contract renewal, but I saw that lots of tenure dossier, they have personal background information. And I told them where I'm from and what I did, so that they have a little bit of a frame of where this dude comes from. And of course, if I tell you that I'm from Pozzuolo Martesana in Italy, to you, that means absolutely nothing. It's useless information. But if I make it a link and I have a Google Maps, you can click on Google Maps and it will take you to Pozzuolo Martesana. So yeah, that's where the dude is from, and you can see pictures. I think it's really nice, and it makes the document more fun to read. So I did that for everything I did, where I went to high school, where my university is. You can open the website of my university in English. Hopefully it will open there. It will take forever to load. It will do its thing. So I can see all of that information. That is the second type of link, outside. And then, of course, there is a third type of link, and that is inside your folder. So, for instance, Appendix A will open not a website, not an outside source, not within the narrative, but it will open the folder where I put, I don't remember what Appendix A was. Oh, samples, syllabi, and exams. Those within the appendix, I did the same thing. So even if I click there, it should take me to my syllabus. So that's my first advice: use links extensively. Well, the first advice is write for whoever will read your dossier. The second one is make it look nice. The third one, use all 3 types of link in Google Docs. It makes it easy to read. And then, as you can see, yes, don't listen to the guidelines. This one is 73 pages. Of course, it's a lot because it's this was a tenure dossier. So I'm assuming for a contract renewal, you don't go over 5 years, you go over 2. So it will be much more compact, and that's okay. But yeah, I don't think that 8 pages will work. Other thing that I did that saved me tons of time, so maybe someone will find it useful too. I'm going to do something that I shouldn't do and show you my emails, but there is nothing incriminating in there, so it should be okay. I like the G suite a lot. I organize everything in here, and I use labels a lot, and that helps a lot with the contract renewal and tenure dossier, because on paper, you normally would keep a box every time you get a thank you letter. You either make a copy or print it and put it in there. But now that everything is online, I have just a contract renewal folder that I had there for my 5 years. And every time someone sends me a document that says thank you or you did this, it goes in there and it's already, you know, it's archived. It has the date. It has what they wrote about you. So, well, Donald is not here, but he's the last one that sent you a thank you letter. So it's right there and I can copy that document. That saved me tons of time. And I did this for 4 years now. It's really nice because you open that folder, everything is there. It's just copy and paste, copy and paste. It's so nice. Another thing that I do with Google is I put absolutely everything in my calendar to the point where I am a little, it's too much. But every course I took, everything I did will end up in my calendar. And that's nice because you can search that one too. So right now, if I want to know when I work for TGIF, I can just type in TGIF here, and it should show me all of the meetings, all of the TGIF meetings that I attended, everything I did with the date and when I did it. That way, in your appendix, you can also copy and paste because, you know, TGIF, what did you do? Well, look at how many meetings and how many hours I spent doing TGIF work. For instance, it's one of my committees. Oh, and Donald just got here just in time to see his letter. Back to my tenure thingy. So that is my advices. And then I have some don'ts. These are my do's. Hopefully you found some of them useful. And my don'ts, how am I on time? Am I over already?
You're good.
I'm good? Okay.
Mhm.
My don't is be careful with FERPA stuff. So you have to be mindful of privacy for your students. Some of the things that will look really bad is even pictures of your classroom, but maybe there is a student there and it is identifiable. I would avoid those. If it is a public setting like Discovery Fair, that's okay. But if it is something happening in your classroom or even mentioning a student grade next to the name of the student, I would probably avoid any privacy issue and stay away from those. Another thing that looks particularly bad, I think, is the DPC will give you feedback twice for your first document, for your second document. I went through those and I made it the biggest part of my documents. So this response to DPC and division chair comments, I made it a whole part of my dossier, and that is every single thing they said, I have my response, what I did in a table, and it is easy to find because I'm assuming that the DPC will get cranky if they read my whole thing and then wrote something that I should do, and then in my next dossier, there's nothing about it. It just feels like, you know, when you give a 60% to a student and you tell them, you messed up here. And to fix it, you should do this, this, and that. And then they turn in another lab report and it's identical. That just is, I think it's one of the ways to not get renewed is not listen to the feedback. And the third thing that is my third don't is careful where you put your documents because they're picky about where they are. All of my appendices and documents, unless they are a website, like my university website, need to be inside your folder for the contract renewal. If you link a PDF, for instance, that is on your personal Google Drive, that is considered forbidden. Part of the reason is some of the process is anonymous, and if you ask me to open a PDF on your folder, you could technically track who is viewing your files. So if it is any file, PDF, doc, JPG, it needs to be in the folder that they will give to you together with your dossier. Otherwise, you'll get dinged for that. That's it. Those are my 3 don'ts. Careful with FERPA, careful with the feedback, and careful with where you put your documents. That should be it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thank you so much, Luca. So helpful. Great advice, great do's and don'ts. And then we'll have some time after our last presenter for any questions for the group as well. So last but not least, we have another tech guru on our campus, Kalei Ruiz, who's going to be giving us his take on contract renewals. Thanks, Kalei.
Aloha nui tako, everyone. I don't have slides either as with Allan, but I think I'll just share some things. I kind of figured I was going to be the last in the alphabet. So I was like, okay, I can see what other folks are saying. And a lot of you folks said some of the things I was going to say. So just to reinforce some of those ideas, I absolutely agree with Luca about aesthetics are important. If you send it out on the runway looking fabulous, even if it stumbles a little, it still looks fabulous. So people will tend to see that first impression that is set, right, by the aesthetic of the document, and it shows that you put time into thinking about the fact that someone else is looking at this and you made it look nice. And also, in addition to aesthetics, Luca also brought this up, making it navigatable and easy to navigate. I think for all of us, if you haven't been on one yet, but for those of us who have been, when we have to do the reviews, what we're always looking for is it easy to find the things we need in order to give you, the points or to show and demonstrate that you have met these respective parts of that rank. So the easier you can make it for them, the better. One interesting thing about navigation that I found is, for me personally, I did my narrative in sections, separate sections in the tenure site. And I've had different reviews about that. As some people have said, I actually really love it when it's separate because it feels like it's chunked and easier to read. And then I had other people who said, I hate that because I just want it in one place and be able to just scroll all the way down. That brings me to one of the bigger points I wanted to share in this talk is, those who have worked with me know that I'm a hyper perfectionist and I want everything to be absolutely perfect. And what I've learned in this process is that is not a very healthy way to approach it, because you have a multitude of people looking at this document. They will all have very different opinions about what is appropriate or what should happen in this document. So throughout my time, I did seek feedback from people outside of the division just to have diversity of perspective. But as Aaron and other folks in here have said, you really want to talk to the people in your division because there are very different ideas. Like, for instance, I know some divisions are like, I don't want to read anything over 15 pages. Whereas with counseling, we want the flowers and we want to hear everything that you've done. So just that alone can really either benefit you or get you into trouble, right? Because if you went with the shorter version that you were told of someone in a different division and find out your division actually wants the novel, then that puts you in a position to maybe not have given them enough content. But having said that, seek the feedback, but take every bit of feedback with some grain of salt, not because you don't trust your colleague, but because you may ask someone else and they will tell you the polar opposite. As an example, there was one particular section that I was debating of whether to put in my dossier, and one person said, you should absolutely put that because it shows leadership, it shows the committee that you're committed in this way, et cetera, et cetera. And then I asked another colleague both of them were people that have been mentors to me and I trust them completely. The other person said, I think that is a really bad idea because if you put that section in, it's going to make it look like you did not focus on the other areas that you're supposed to. Because it was actually a section that is not needed for rank 3, which I was going for. It was actually something that's needed for a future rank. So polar opposite, right? So what I ended up doing was I kind of did a halfway point. Instead of making it its own section, I pointed out leadership within the service area. So I didn't make it its own thing, but I still made sure I highlighted it. But again, and that's not the only bit of advice. And actually, even after I got my document back, there were certain things that people, again, who I trusted completely with my professional life. And they said, do not put this section in. And then the DPC and my division chair said, in the future, it would be a good idea to put this section, which again, for a perfectionist, drove me absolutely insane. Because I was like, wait, but people who have done this process before told me don't put that. And then now I'm being told to put that. And then after I calm down a little bit. But it was just funny because again, reading it, I was like, wait, but somebody told me this was not a good idea, or this was a good idea. And that's when I learned, all right, you're never gonna get it perfect, because you don't know who's gonna be on your reviewing body. Exactly. And sometimes you don't even know what their opinion is gonna be of how you did something. Another example is in my document, I kind of went this creative way. Instead of doing the rote like unit, campus service, student services, I aligned it with the student pathway, like how I wanted to be involved at each point of how this impacted the student. And everyone I gave it to before the formal review was like, this is so cool. This is different. It's creative and it's interesting. And then the people who formally reviewed it, a few of them were like, you know, it would just be a lot easier if you just did the rote. And I was like, okay. So again, the bottom line point is get as much feedback as you are comfortable with, but when you get it, that's where you make it yours. So you decide what makes sense from what all these different people who I really respect have told me, and now what makes the most sense to me of all the advice I've been given, because all of it may be simultaneously correct. And you just have to decide, all right, what's going to make sense for my document in the way I want it to flow, in the way I want the readers to be able to find the information. And speaking of finding the information and being able to know how to set that up in the new online system, I will say that with a lot of my colleagues who during my submission period and the couple of years after, I found that, as we know, everyone has different levels of comfort with technology. So a little background with me is I am a counselor on campus, and in my unit, I'm actually the technology coordinator. So I help everyone with how to use different tech, and it ranges from people who I barely need to tell them what to do, and I give them written instructions and boom, they already got it, to people who I need to do repeated calls with to remember how to hyperlink something. So knowing that, I actually created a document to assist my unit. And actually, I've given it to some of our non-constant colleagues too. So it's go.hawaii.edu/X_d2. And here, I'll screen share it really quick. But basically, these are just things I threw together as I was going through my process and figuring out what things might work. Well, not what things might work, but how to do things in this online dossier. Again, some people didn't even know how to do a hyperlink. So I put some of that information in here. And a lot of this, mind you, this is in no way anything formal. You know, I didn't have a committee and we all agreed upon what the best practices are. These are just things that I found were easiest or worked best for me. So there are links to how to do different things. There is information on and recommendations about how to organize the tenure drive, how to do the links, etc. So very basic, just how to tech stuff. And I found a lot of folks have found this basic level of help really, really useful. Because again, we can get the content advice from a lot of different people, but when it comes to technology, that's such a different kind of knowledge base. Like there are so many things that Luca shared that I was like, oh my gosh, that's really helpful. And I didn't know I could do, like the Google Calendar one. I gotta keep that note down for future. But when I talk to other techie people, there are things that some of us have figured out that the other hasn't. So it's pretty cool to pool that kind of knowledge. But for those who, I know there are a lot, because there are a few colleagues I've talked with, they don't really want to do anything too fancy. Those kinds of tips that I put in that document are the helpful part of just how do you do a link? Another question that comes up a lot is, you know, people are worried about, as an example, websites. You know, you have no control over if that URL is going to change and go away, and then when you link it, it's gone. So I shared with some people that what I did is I PDF'd the site. It doesn't look as pretty as the site itself, but at least you've preserved the content in a stable form that no matter what happens, when your reviewing body clicks on that item, it's there and they see what they need to see. So, and that kind of echoes back to what some folks in here were saying about make sure everything is actually in the tenure drive, because that is the only way you guarantee that the that the information is going to be there. And also, big thing, confidentiality, because if you are to share a shared doc straight from your Google Drive, you're going to be able to see who's viewed it. And then the confidentiality is no longer there, which is part of the integrity of the TPRC or any DPC and review process. But I think that is it. Sorry, Aaron, 6-7 minutes was a lot longer than I thought. But those would be some of the tips I would share. And I know part of the reason I kind of stuck to the tech stuff and this kind of thinking, because I know a lot of people who might view this are in the last few weeks, and I don't want to say anything that is going to make people feel pressured out. It's just at this point, just make it as fabulous as it can be at this point, and you're going to do wonderful. Just keep that in your head. You're going to do fabulous.
Thank you so much, Kalei. Just really appreciate all that you do share. You have so much wonderful insights, and all of our presenters, we really appreciate just sharing your experiences, both for content and for the tech. I just wanted to open it up to see, are there any questions, Lorraine? Do you have any questions, or Donald, for our presenters today? If not, I do have a couple questions, but just want to open it up first.
No question. Well, one question, Kalei, is it okay if I opened up the doc that you shared? Is it okay if I make a copy of it and save it, or okay? Thank you.
Yeah, you know how I am, Lorraine. Anything that I create, I want people to use it and share it. And if you have other colleagues who don't know about it, share it. Totally.
I appreciate it. I think that will come in handy. And I'm one of the people who's, I'm not going to be fervently doing things until probably the next month or the month after, because mine's not due until January. But I'm in the process of getting things together and things ready. First of all the tips are really helpful. Thank you. I'm a little curious because I do a contract renewal. I don't believe that this is going to lead down the line to a tenure and promotion dossier because of the position that I'm in and the funding and all of those things. But it seems like if perhaps I shifted into another position that would give me the opportunity, would this apply to that, I guess, or would I be starting all over again? And I don't really care in terms of this isn't going to change my perspective about things, but it helps me understand how the process works.
Yes, you can. There is a section, I wish I knew the article offhand, and the reason I'm answering is because I actually had this happen. I was in a probationary position, or excuse me, they call non-probationary when it's, non-probationary grant-funded position. Actually, I was also on Title III as a counselor. And then once I rolled into the tenure line, what you do is they call it a credit for service. So the amount of time that you put into a non-probationary position, you can require a part of that to shorten your probationary period on the tenure one. So you basically would move up your timeline. And that's something you would want to discuss with, make sure you discuss with your division and with HR and get everything very clear about what is my current timeline, how much time can I ask for, and how much time do I want to shorten? Because even if you have 3 years in the non-probationary, you also might want to talk with your division about, okay, wait, do I really want to shorten and speed up my timeline that much? Because will that benefit you, or might that hurt you because you maybe weren't doing the same type of work? Yeah, so that's just different things to consider. But if it ever comes to that point, Lorraine, definitely talk with our unit and then HR just to see what would be the kind of the sweet spot of how much credit for service to request. Kalei, but if anybody else has other experiences.
Well, and I
would be
think that
interested
also informs how I approach the narrative as well. That it's not something that's just for now, but it's something that could potentially impact other things. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Excellent response, Kalei. I concur. So, all right. Okay, so I do have a question. So again, talking about the tech side of it, because I think as we're getting to the last couple of weeks before people submit, I think just having those little tips and tricks on how to do things. And Kalei, I just want to confirm, thank you so much for being willing to share your document. So it's go.hawaii.edu/X small d and the number 2. And so those are very helpful instructions. But I was hoping if, so Luca, you had mentioned that there's 3 ways to link things. Would you mind just kind of sharing your screen and just showing us real quickly what those are? And then also, if you can also stick in there how to create labels in your email. I think being able to do that and to be able to search just saves people a lot of time if they can do that ahead of time for their next renewal. Oh, you're on mute.
I'll share the screen again, and then you can watch me fail. Let me move things around a little bit. And now I cannot share the screen anymore. And now I can. Okay. So I also shared in the chat, there is a service on web.archive.org because someone mentioned. You can make a snapshot of a website and they guarantee that it won't change. And then instead of linking to, say, a news article, because maybe they will change it or not, you link it to that website and it will be there like a snapshot. So you can skip that PDF making process if you want. PDF making works great. It just saves you a little bit of time. And for the links, these are the 3 types of links. So they all start the same way and they're all very simple to use. If you have a bookmark somewhere, and I was tapping down my SLOs here on a random page, you just write down, this is my link to my bookmark. And what you do is you just right click and it's always the same. You pick insert link. In there, Google will tell you, okay, these are the last links and that you used. And in here, you should have bookmarks. And it should show you there which one is the bookmark that you want to use. So if I click on that, I'm pretty much done. I made the link. So insert link and then bookmark. And when you click it, it will take you to the correct page. Another way is a link to a website. And for that one, you do the same. You right click, insert link, and then you paste here. I don't know, I want www.youtube. I don't know why I would want to link to youtube.com, but that's what I want. Apply. And it will be there and it's done. And when you click on it, it also shows you a small preview if it is showable, and it will do all of that automatically. You don't have to do a thing. It will find the homepage of that website for you. Google does it all for you. And the only tricky one is the link to a document because you'll have to grab the hyperlink from your folder. So for that one, you have to keep your folder open too, where your documents are, and you're going to get a 10-year folder. This is my personal folder. So let's say I want to link this video here. I have to go in there and right click on that and get the link. And here, the thing that you should be careful about, pick anyone with a link. That will remove the most restrictions. If you leave that alone, it could be restricted. That means you have to specify who can open it. That's too painful. I would never do that. You can leave it so that only people that are in the University of Hawaii system can read it, but maybe the DPC, the person is reading it on their phone and they're not logged in University of Hawaii. They have a link to your document, so I normally just pick always anyone with the link. And when you do that, you just copy the link. It says copied. Then you go back to your document and you do the same. So you right click, insert link, and you paste that link, enter, and it's done. So now when I click on this, it shows the preview. It's a video of my classroom. They can already see the screen there. If you click on it, and the video is super nice with Google because they also do streaming for you. That means I don't have to watch Luca teach for 1 hour and 13 minutes. I can skip to 29 minutes in, and if my connection was a little bit faster, you would see that it would jump there. It will, trust me, it will. So that is for the 3 types of links. They all start the same way. And to create a bookmark, let's say another bookmark is, I don't know, what is it? Professional development. There, when you want to create a bookmark, similar process. I think you click on insert, or you can insert from here, right? No, I was joking. You insert from there, from the big menu up top, and one of the bottom options is bookmark. And you don't have to do anything else. It will automatically recognize the first sentence as the bookmark. So this bookmark is called My Professional Development. Automatically, you don't need to label it.
So could you please clarify what a bookmark is? Are we talking about bookmarks in the document or bookmarks?
In your own document, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it just makes the reader jump to that spot in your own document. So if I use this bookmark, it says my SLOs, it will jump there. And then the reader is free to jump back to your index or list and back and forward that way. So all it does, it really moves the cursor to whatever you call the bookmark. It does nothing else.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for asking. And for the email, sorry, my lights are possessed and they turn on and off automatically. I don't know why. For the email part, so you have the labels here, I think, appear automatically in your Gmail account. You can create a new one. You can just put plus and name it whatever you want and pick a color. And that's pretty much all you have to do. I can say, I call it something, I create it, and now I have the something label there, and I can change the color and make it prettier so it's easier to find. And then when you receive an email, so this nasty person, Erin, sent me an email today, the last one, and maybe I want to label it as something. You can just click on it or open it. Either way, the label icon will appear up top, and I can say, oh, this one is important because it's an action item, or because it's contract renewal, or both. And the moment I hit apply, it will save in those folders, and it's much easier to find. So I have a new label. Let's see if it works. There is something in here, and I can apply, and now that is labeled as something with the color that is typical of that. So that's how I organize my emails.
So Luca, you can put the same email in multiple folders through that.
Correct.
Oh, I didn't
Yes.
realize that. Very
So I
good.
could say that this very important email from Erin is both an action item, it is a report, and it is important for credit renewal, and it is a TGIF, which is true. So I can apply and it will save it in all of those. So when I go to my TGIF folder, the first one that will appear is this very important email from Erin that is both an action item, a report, a credit renewal, and a something. So it will, I'll add all of those. And normally what I do is I have my action folder. It will tell me what to do that day. And when I'm done, I will just go there and say, okay, I did what I needed to do for Erin, and I can remove that label and it will disappear for my action folder. So what I do in any given day is what Gmail tells me to do in the action folder, pretty much. This is my boss. You're looking at my boss right here. I need to do something for Thomas, apparently.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Luca. So helpful.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any other questions? If not, I do have one more question for all three of you. So, I know we have just a couple weeks for some people doing their last minute, final touches, but there is a whole contingent that is going to be doing contract renewals in January or doing it early 2023. And then also people that are going to be getting ready for next year. So are there any, Luca shared some organizational tips that he does, via searches on Google Calendar, the way he organizes his emails. Are there any other organizational tips or ways that you folks prepare so that it makes the actual writing of the document, when you're ready to write it, it makes it a little bit easier? What are some of the organizational tips that you've used?
I have a system kind of similar to Luca's. I use my Gmail to organize all of my my content. It's not as complex or, as Kalei was saying, next level as Luca's, but I found that to be very helpful. And also just creating, because the system will create a Google Drive for you, but it it's good to have your own personal Google Drive to also have everything in there, so you can kind of pull documents in and out, when you have to, right?
When you organize your Google folders, Allan, do you then just copy and paste all of them into the folder that the system provides for you?
Yeah, so what I do, because not everything in my in my Google folder is going to be relevant to what I'm going to use. Some of the things sometimes are duplicated. So what I do is I just kind of import it in and copy it. Yeah, and that helps because the actual system drive, once everything is submitted, there is a period where you're because they're going to review, you have no access to it, or it doesn't, it's locked to you, right? So in case the committee reaches out and says, we're missing this information, can you provide it? It's good to have that separate folder, kind of like almost like a backup folder to just have all of that evidence or that documentation in case, maybe for some reason the link is not working, that you provided, you can instantly just provide it for them. Yeah.
Thank you, Allan. How about you, Kalei? You're one of the most organized people that I know. How do you organize your work so that when it comes time to write, you're ready to go?
Well, part of my organization is everything I do it way early. And that is in part because like with Lorraine, when you said you're usually one of the ones who does it towards the end, which is actually the majority of people, I'm just like, oh my God, because I don't do well under pressure. So I usually do things ahead. And what I usually will have is actually what I have right now for my next document is I already have a just a Google Doc that I have favorited, like really quick, so I can quickly go into it. And I just have the sections like leadership, community service, campus service, etc. I just have the headings. And what I do is whenever something happens, or, like I'll do it regularly, like maybe every month, at the end of the month, I'll go in and I'll note everything down right there. So I have a quick list to refer to later. So it's just a different system. Like Luca's is with the email labels, that's super useful. But it just depends on how your workflow goes in general, right? Because you want to kind of consider how you go by your day-to-day tasks and how are you going to fit this in. So for some folks, Luca's will work really, really well because it's right there. You just have to look at the labels that you set. But for me, what works for me is just to click on that Google Doc and just list it all down so that I don't forget dates and I don't forget events. And, sometimes because we're doing so much, I end up finding an email later that I'm like, oh, got to add that. But I found that's helpful that by the time you get to the point of you're really going to sit down and start writing, you already have kind of your picture, right, of everything that you've been doing. And sometimes it's helpful too, if you're doing that, say, every month and noting down everything, or at least reviewing, over time, over the years, you already can start thinking at least a little bit about, all right, how am I going to tie those things together? You don't have to do it in a really heavy way, like starting to write sections, but you can at least be surveying by the month, what am I involved in? And how am I going to tie this to my narrative, to my, my philosophy as an instructor or a counselor or a librarian, what have you. So just kind of keeping tabs as you go. That's kind of how I've been doing it, so that when I get to the end, I've got all my eggs in the basket before I start writing.
Love that, Kalei. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to tap into tech time with Luca one more time. So Luca, I really liked how you had shared about the Google Calendar and doing a search. So I was wondering if you don't mind showing that again real quickly for those who might be viewing, and then also would it work? So say someone were to know that they're going to do a search on their calendar, like, so they would do like everything that they put in there for professional development. Maybe they start off with PD dash, and then they have the title of the event. And then would that help with the search? And then if it's like service, they could do like service / and then the title of the meetings that are related to that. And then that way they could do quick searches. Is that something that could work?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I'll show you again. Let me see there. So intentionally, when I go to a TGIF workshop, the first thing that I put in there is TGIF. And this one I just copied and pasted from our calendar, so it was easy. But even my classes, even if I wanted to know how many 162s I taught in the last 4 years, I think I should be able to just look for 162 because that's how I always start my classes. 162 and then the CRN next to it. So if they tell me, oh, how many classes did you teach? Weird question in the last 4 years. And we want to know the exact number and how many hours you spent in your life teaching 162. All I have to do is type in here 162 and I can see every single one. And I could tally them up and export them in Excel if they need to know that much information about me. All you have to remember is start your whatever you put in the calendar in a consistent way. And sometimes, I mess up and maybe the other classes, I call them Chem 162. I can search for both and put them together. I mean, it doesn't have to be that perfect, but it's really nice to start whatever I put in the calendar with something specific. If that answers your question.
Yes, I think that was great. So thank you so much. Are there any other questions as we go ahead and start to wrap this up? Anything from Doreen, Donald? Okay, I'm just gonna have one last question for each of the panelists. If there's one final remark or something that you want to make sure that people that are working on their contract renewals, maybe heading into dossiers, maybe not, but what is one piece of advice or final thought that you'd like to share? I'll go ahead and I'll start with Allan. Is that okay?
Sure. I think for if you're already at this point, you're maybe a couple of months away from submission or maybe a few weeks, really all you can do is can kind of trust in the work that you did, and just not really overthink things, because there's really not a lot of time to make changes, but really just kind of if you believe in the work that you did and you believe that you did it with the impact, it created an impact, and you're clear in your mind what your purpose is, and you felt you've written that down on, just articulated that on your document, then just take that for what it's worth, and then go with confidence moving forward and submit that document. Yeah, and I think that'll come out. If that's the mindset you have, it'll come out into your document. It'll be communicated to your committee. Yeah.
Love that, Allan. Thank you so much. Luca or Kalei?
Okay, you called me first. I'll go first. Okay. I don't know. One thing that I did is I made the document mine. I felt free in my dossier to add things and create things like the cover page or the colors, or sometimes I use word clouds. And every time I tried one of those tricks, I always got very good feedback. They said, oh, nobody else did this. We love it. They didn't say, it's not in the guidelines to use a word cloud and you use too many colors. So you didn't stick to the guidelines. I never got that. So feel free to make the document original and make it yours. Don't be afraid to show your own thing, what you do.
Awesome advice. Thank you, Luca. And Kalei?
I think I will tag on to what Luca just said, is to find a way to find enjoyment in the process, because it's something that we all go through. And I'll throw out a word here from Olelo Hawaii, which is le'a. So for those of you who are not familiar, le'a can translate like many Hawaiian words. When you're going between two languages, it translates into a multitude of things in English, but le'a can translate to joy or pleasure in an experience. And le'a ties into the idea with Hawaiians. It was very important to always create something new, that in creating it, you find le'a, and then you give le'a to people via your creation. And then overall, the community overall finds more le'a in general. So that's always the goal with Hawaiians, where we're looking to create more le'a for the collective. And to apply it to this particular task, I know it can be really daunting sometimes, right? It's very vulnerable for some of us. We're trying to show that we've done enough, but you could even reframe and find the le'a in it. Find what you enjoy about your job. You're getting an opportunity to share that with people, and then find le'a in being creative, exactly what Luca said. Being creative about how you present this work and being excited about being able to show your colleagues, here's what I love so much about what I do at Leeward, and here's how I am very proud of how it is helping my colleagues, how it is helping the community, how it is helping my students. And just finding that, I think, takes some of the out of the process, right? It kind of turns it to something that's more exciting and something that is an opportunity to find, I mean, when I was going through the process, I was actually delighted at the new connections I found between parts of my work and work that, you know, like the missions of our college, the missions of our system. It's cool to make those connections. So kind of taking an attitude like that will make the process overall more enjoyable, and that will show in the product that you're able to give. So find that and enjoy the creativity in the process.
What an awesome way to end the session. Find your people in the whole process of contract renewals and tenure and promotion dossiers. So thank you so much again, Kalei Ruiz, Luca Preziati, Allan Nebrija, to our TGIF chair, Donald Ching, and then thank you, Lorraine, for joining us, and those of you who are joining us online. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you, and ahui ho.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.